Go to suburbdata.com.au and click on the Sign In button to the top right. If you haven't created an account yet, sign up first. It's best to sign up using social media like Google or LinkedIn, but you can use an email address and password. The Suburb Data research platform is best viewed on a desktop or laptop or notepad. Smaller devices like phones will struggle on some pages. Suburb Data has a trial mode for as long as you like. However, when you are trialling, you will only ever be shown mock data, that is pretend or fake data. Trial mode is there to familiarise yourself with how the website works. You have access to all the features, but the data is fake. So do not make any investment decisions based on any data you see in trial mode. Now, to see real data, you switch from trial to live mode. To see real data, you will need to pay for it. You can switch back and forth between trial and live modes whenever you like. So when we release a new feature in the future, you can switch back to trial and play around with it. Suburb Data has no monthly subscription. It works like motorway tolls. You top up your balance and only pay when you use it. With Suburb Data, you pay for mini reports. For example, a chart is a mini report. It might only cost $1. Other reports may be more expensive, like a list of the top 20 markets that match your budget. Pay-per-use model means you only pay for what you need when you need it and no more. It also means your subscription doesn't expire and you don't need to cancel. Each month, you can check on a market after you've bought there, perhaps to see how much prices have risen or to check on vacancy rates. Quick checks like this once a month are usually less than $1. At the top of every page is the header. You can see how much you spent on your last report and how much credit you have remaining. There are also the buttons to switch between trial and live modes. When you run out of credit, you can top up your available balance using this button. To return to this page, click on the Home icon. If you found a bug or have a suggestion, click on the Feedback button. Click on this icon of a person to view or edit your membership details. There are a few preferences that you might like to set for your account. You can choose a name we use to refer to you in correspondence, and if applicable, a company name and ABN to appear on invoices. You can also set your time zone, and this comes in handy in the transaction history, which I'll come to in a minute. If you signed up via email and password, this page allows you to update your password. If you signed up by social media, we do not store your password. To change it, you need to contact Google or LinkedIn or Facebook. This shows all the transactions you've made. That is all the mini reports that you've requested and payments you've made. It shows the date and time in your time zone, a brief description of the report that you requested, and how much it cost and what your balance was afterwards. If you click on the description, it will open the appropriate research tool and it will auto set the criteria to that mini report. You can see trial transactions or live ones, and you can group by day, month, year, and even financial year. Click on the Show Invoices button to see all your payments, and you can click on the description to download an invoice. To protect against overspending, you can ask to be prompted if the cost exceeds a certain value. Set the maximum report cost to not be bothered with a prompt. In this example, if I requested a report that costs more than $20, I would be prompted to confirm before proceeding. This protects you from spending more than you expected. If anything confuses you, there are several ways to get help. The quickest is these turquoise information icons. Get in the habit of clicking on them whenever you first visit a page. You may also find links to pages explaining a tool or a metric. For example, when you select a metric, the explanation of that metric appears underneath the metric selector. The one-liner is followed by a link to a page explaining that metric in full. You can also view other tutorials like this one you're watching by going to the main domain, suburbdata.com.au. The top menu has an item called Education in the right. Under Education, you'll find a link to the tutorials page. And if none of this online help was sufficient, then you can contact customer support using the Help button in the bottom right corner. Most researchers want suburb-level data. Sometimes it can be unreliable, especially if property is tightly held or if it is a small suburb. In these cases, it may be better to look at data for larger areas like postcodes or local government areas, also known as councils. Most research tools will allow you to choose the level of granularity that you want the data aggregated to. The default is the suburb, but you can choose macro geos like those shown in this list. A significant urban area, or SUA for short, is a city or large regional town or area like Sydney, Geelong, the Sunshine Coast, Albany, Whyalla, Launceston, and so on. They have a minimum population of 10,000 and they're defined by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. There are about 100 of them across Australia. Another ABS-defined set of areas are the statistical areas. We aggregate suburb data to SA2s, SA3s and SA4s. SA2s are about the size of a postcode. There are around 2,500 SA2s across Australia. SA3s are a bit larger than a typical local government area, and there are over 300 of them. SA4s are the largest statistical area. There are just over 100. An SA4 will contain a few SA3s, and SA3s will contain around half a dozen SA2s, and an SA2 will typically contain a few suburbs. There are 3 drop-downs that you will see on almost every research tool: month selectors, geography selectors, and metric selectors. Most researchers want the latest data, so the month is defaulted to the latest. But you may want to see some data from the past and not in an historical chart. For example, you might want to test your search criteria. You can select a month from, say, 5 years ago. Apply your criteria to search the country's property market as it was back then. You can then see how those top suburbs performed to confirm your research approach works. Most geography selectors allow you to pick any type of geography. It will quite often be a suburb. Start typing the name of the suburb. If there are multiple suburbs around Australia with the same name, you may need to qualify with a state. And in some rare cases, you may also need the postcode. You can also see data at the postcode level. To find a postcode, type the number and then the state. To see data aggregated to the local government area, type the name and add LGA in brackets afterwards. To see all the LGAs, just type LGA in brackets. To see data for significant urban areas, type the name of the city or area and follow it with SUA in brackets. And to list all SUAs, simply type SUA in brackets. To list all states, type state in brackets. All research tools will have a metric selector. Start typing a word that describes the data you're after. After selecting a metric, you will see a definition of that metric appear underneath the metric selector. If this simple explanation is insufficient, you can click on the link at the end to open a page that explains that metric more comprehensively. Use this button to clear all criteria to start fresh. Click this button to return to the list of research tools. Click this button to save your criteria. This comes in handy if you want to re-enter the same criteria often. The default name is given, but you can change it to whatever you like. There are some examples that we provide. They start with e.g. You can choose one set of criteria to be your favourite. Whenever you return to this page, your favourite set of criteria will be automatically loaded into the fields. After setting your criteria for a report, you can find out how much the report will cost by clicking this button. A detailed report appears showing you how the system came up with the price on the quote. Note that quotes in trial mode may differ slightly from quotes in live mode. If you are happy with your criteria and happy with the quote, you can then view the report by clicking Get Data. Your report will appear below the line of buttons. The Get Log button will show you a list of all requests that you've made for this research tool. They're listed with the most recent at the top, and there's a brief description for each. If you click on the View link, the criteria for that request you made earlier will replace your current criteria, and this makes it easy to view the same report again. You do not pay to view the exact same report again. Note, however, that if you modify the criteria, even in the slightest, it is a different report and you'll have to pay full price, even if you may have seen some of the same data before. There are a few approaches that you can take to your research. We recommend starting with Suburb Search. The idea of Suburb Search is to list a set of suburbs or areas that are good candidates for further research. Suburb Search acts as a huge filter, sifting out the best suburbs that suit your requirements from all suburbs Australia-wide. For more details, see the Suburb Search tutorial. In the list of suburbs that match your criteria, you may notice some suburbs are in the same city or area. Now might be a good time to view that city or area using the heat map. The idea of the heat map is to identify clusters of heat, a grouping of suburbs. A map is shown with all the suburbs shaded according to a metric of your choice. The most prominent suburbs are the ones with better values for that metric. The most used metric is the demand to supply ratio, and that's because it combines many metrics into a single score for the best overall investment potential for a market. A hot suburb on its own might be a one-off, perhaps an anomaly, but a group of suburbs all showing similar strength is a solid sign of a growth area. Some researchers prefer to use the heat map without even looking at Suburb Search. They like the real-time filtering and the visual response. This can be more effective, but more costly too. It is cheaper and quicker to narrow your heat map to an area you've discovered first using Suburb Search. For more details, see the heat map tutorial. To keep costs down, you should only view a handful of key metrics in Suburb Search or heat map. To look at a lot of metrics, this is where the Market Metrics research tool comes in. Market Metrics is where you go to look at a suburb in detail. You can specify as many or as few metrics as you wish. For more details, see the Market Metrics tutorial. The Historical Chart Research tool is handy for those interested in analysing trends. It also comes in handy when checking for volatility. Volatility is when an historical chart shows sudden rises and falls from month to month. Volatility can be a sign of unreliable data. Vacancy rate is a good example of this. For more details, see the Historical Chart tutorial. The context ruler is invaluable whenever setting a filter in Suburb Search. The context ruler places a metric value in context by comparing it with the broader market. You can see how likely it is you will find a suburb with this metric greater than or less than a certain value. The frequency distribution bars are especially helpful here. For example, many investors set a minimum yield of, say, 6%, and they don't realise how many suburbs they eliminate from consideration by doing that. It is harder to find an extra 2 or 3% yield above average compared to finding an extra 5% growth above average. You don't want to sacrifice 5% growth to gain only 2% yield. So always consult the context ruler for any metric you plan to filter by. This is especially true for metrics you may be unfamiliar with, like statistical reliability. For more information, watch the tutorial on the context ruler. This has been a quick start to Suburb Data. Many useful research features have been left for other tutorials. So from here, go through those other tutorials to see what else is possible. Oh, and don't forget to click on the information icons, especially when you come to a new page.